So hi everyone, morning, I'm Danny Meehan. I'm here to talk to you about delivering greater engagement to members through greener pensions. So just to touch upon what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about aligning pensions to your employees' values, their concerns and expectations. The pensions industry hasn't been very good at getting people emotionally involved. And when it has, it's usually been for completely the wrong reasons. What we want to do is to try and build a connection particularly for younger savers, into what their pension is doing in the here and now than what it might be doing in 30 years in the future, because we know that that model isn't working from an engagement perspective. Technology is a part of our lives. I can see many of you have got phones in your hands at this point. We've all got apps. Everything is easier, apart from when it doesn't work, obviously. So again, we'll talk briefly about how we can use technology to reduce friction and again remove the hassle when it comes to engaging with pensions. And then finally, we'll talk about showcasing how investments can be used to drive engagement as well. It's not just something that's happening behind the scenes. We do think there's some real impact stories that can be told there. So, teaching grandma to suck eggs a little bit. This is stuff you probably all know, but auto-enrollment, probably one of the single most effective nudges in recent history. It's been predicated completely on inertia, but it's resulted in a tenfold increase of people saving into pensions. So it was around about 2 million people in 2011. I think we're just at 21 million people now in 2022. So absolutely fantastic, but as we think we can all recognise, that auto-enrollment minima, contributions, qualifying earnings, are not going to deliver a particularly good retirement outcome. So there's more that needs to be done. The government are in a bit of a tricky situation across the board, so there's no political capital, as far as I can see, for them to undertake the recommendations of the Auto-Enrollment 2017 review, which was to expand the scope of auto-enrollment to 18-year-olds, and to remove the qualifying earnings measure. And there's certainly no political will to increase the minimum contributions. And I know that conversation's being kicked around most recently by the ABI. Again, stating the obvious, we're not saving enough. We're not saving enough as a country. We're at a cost of living crisis. Many people are in a financially precarious situation. And on the whole, UK PLC is not saving enough for retirement. And we tend to find out that we haven't saved enough when it's far too late, when people may have had their retirement wake-up pack from age 50 and beyond. They might suddenly realise that the shortfall between their hopes and expectations and the reality is too significant to make a meaningful difference to. Sorry, this sounds really depressing. It does get better, I promise you. Inertia by design, it could lead to good retirement outcomes. As it's currently designed for auto-enrollment, it's not going to lead to good retirement outcomes for the many, because we require contribution rates way above what employers can afford to spend at the moment, and what we do need to do is to drive engagement amongst our members earlier. So, still a bit depressing, but again, it does get better. We know most people are disconnected from their future income source, from their pension. This is a recent study we did. I think it's being released in the next week or two. 30% of 18 to 24-year-olds don't understand why they would have a pension, which is pretty shocking. But what's even more shocking is you get to 15% of 35 to 44-year-olds. Presumably they've all got buy-to-let portfolios. I don't know. But there is still a real disconnect from what people are doing in terms of saving into the pension to the outcome that they'll get. And, people bring up Maxwell, mis-selling scandals, things that happened 30 years ago. We need to kind of move on from that past and look to reinvigorate this. So just a brief touch upon making it easy for people. So we've come from a world where we join an employer, you get a paper welcome pack for your pension. If you're lucky, you might get a PDF document showing your pension scheme. But we can actually do better than that. And I know there's a multitude of apps that are being presented out there, but I think I'm probably being biased here, but I think we can probably agree savings, nearer term savings such as ISAs and pensions within that is probably one that's worth engaging with on the whole. So let's make it easy for people. So let's do it through an app, let's do it through a web app, let's do it for paper for the kind of less than 5% of people that want to engage that way. Let's have something for everyone. Let's support vulnerable customers, and let's make it easy for people to to engage. And an important part of that is being able to nudge. So we talk about simplified annual benefit statements, for example. We can do better than that. We can nudge people through an app notification, an SMS message, an email, a well-written piece of paper to let them know of where they currently are on their savings journey and the things that they can do to close the gap. Saving more, maybe changing investment strategy, taking more risk, or being more realistic about the retirement date, or maybe a combination of all three. But the technology is in our hands to be able to do that now. And let's find the things that people care about today. So, as I kind of said before, telling people hyper-discounted numbers 30 years hence is not working. It's actually probably having the opposite effect, the ostrich effect. Let's show people some of the positives that their pensions can do today. So something that people do care about, these are some ONS statistics. What is it? About just under, 75% of all people are either very worried or somewhat worried about the impact of climate change. So we can say as a collective, we care about climate change as an example, and that's something that my own organisation has kind of hung its hat to. There are other things that people can care about as well. So let's find out. Communication is a two-way process. It's not about telling people things. It's about opening a dialogue, and it's going beyond an annual survey. So there are tools at our disposal now where we can show people at a granular level the companies that they're invested in. So it might be a surprise to people to find out that they're actually invested in companies full stop. They may be even more surprised to find out that they're invested in Shell or BP, and they might have a strong view about that. So let's surface this, let's bring more transparency, and let people have their say when shareholder voting comes up. So on things like gender equality, diversity on boards, climate, ESG, and so on. Let people have their say. And we and a number of other providers have been working with an organisation called Tomello, which some of you may have heard of, who've been very good at kind of bringing this extra transparency to life. And the early statistics so far have been very good. We're seeing kind of 25 to 30% engagement from our membership with the with some of the shareholder votes that are coming through, which is great. Let's talk about investments. Investments is typically a topic which at least 90% of a workforce start to glaze over. Talking about bonds and equities isn't particularly sexy, but wind farms are sexy. Trees are pretty cool. Let's show them how, and sorry, just to kind of preface this is looking more towards the growing push towards private markets investments within the pension space. As we've seen from recent history, there's less diversification in the markets. Anyone who's invested in a 60-40 equity bond portfolio will be seeing that now. There's a pretty strong correlation there, not a particularly good one. Let's broaden what pension schemes invest in. Let's look for other opportunities. Let's look for greater diversification. Forestry, not only is it an attractive asset in its own right, it's not correlated at all to what's happening in private markets. What's going on in Ukraine, the energy shock and everything else is not having an impact on forestry returns. Recent history has shown kind of double-digit returns. I think going forwards we're looking at 7 to 8% returns for forestry after costs, which we can all agree is very attractive, and you've got diversification benefits. But from an engagement perspective, it's tangible. We can take our members to go and visit the forestry they're invested in on the Scottish borders. We can live stream through webcams the golden eagle chicks that have hatched from the rewilded native species we put into the forest. It presents us with so many different opportunities. Things like renewable energy, same. You can go and visit the wind farm. Social real estate, there's a real push at the moment around place-based investing, so it's kind of linked to the government's Build Back Better approach, but place-based investing, regenerating city centres, workplaces, town centres, deprived areas, show people the real-world benefit that their pension can have in the area that they live in. And from a kind of looking forward to the future in terms of retirement, you get good investment returns in the short and medium term, but also you can improve the place that you're going to retire into as well. So if done correctly, it can be a win-win. So there's lots of opportunities, and the Australians have been doing this kind of thing for years. You get off the plane at Sydney Airport, it's been a while since I've done it, but you can see the kind of superannuation schemes, their equivalent of the UK Master Trust, advertising the kind of bridges, the airports, the tunnels that people's pension schemes have built. And it's been tremendously effective from that perspective, and I think that's something that we can definitely look to lean into. And then this is the final slide. So in terms of time, I think I've done it in about 12 minutes. So there is some scope for questions. Just that should nudge there. So just bringing it all together, let's make it easy for people. You can see the statistics. I don't need to replay them for you. But let's reduce the hassle. Let's make it easier for people to engage with their pension. Let's put it in the palm of their hand if they wish to. We've had about 85% engagement with our app, which has been tremendous. But we need to also be able to deliver for those that don't want to engage in that way. You know, make sure you've got a good web-based application. Make sure your paper comms sing, and make sure you obtain the views of your members as well to make sure you're communicating and engaging in the right way. And don't do it too often. We've all had downloaded apps where you get too many app notifications and you think, right, sod that, I'm going to delete it or just kill off it. And then they're gone. Getting them back is incredibly difficult. And let's find the things that people care about and give them the opportunity to open a dialogue with you as a provider or an employer, more importantly, and then you can kind of align your own corporate values to how your members are voting, as an example. So I'll close it there.